Danny Carter was tired. His bones ached and his eyes burned from staring at broken pipes all day. He worked as a maintenance technician on the deep space research vessel called the Horizon's Edge. It was not a glamorous job. Nobody wrote songs about the guy who fixed toilets and coolant leaks in the middle of space. But Danny did not mind. He had left Earth 3 years ago to escape a boring life, and even boring work felt better when you could see stars outside your window. He finished his shift at midnight ship time. The lower deck smelled like oil and recycled air. Danny wiped his hands on his jumpsuit and walked slowly to his quarters. The hallway was empty. Most of the crew was asleep, and the ship hummed quietly around him like a sleeping giant. His room was small, just a bed, a locker, and a tiny screen on the wall. Danny did not need much. He kicked off his boots, fell onto the thin mattress, and closed his eyes. Sleep came fast, like a wave pulling him under. He dreamed of light. It was not normal light. It was purple and bright, and it pulsed like a heartbeat. Danny felt like he was floating in an ocean made of electricity. Voices spoke around him, but they did not use words. They used feelings. He felt curiosity. He felt something ancient looking at him, studying him, reaching into his mind like fingers through water. He tried to wake up. He could not. The light grew brighter, the voices grew louder, and then everything went silent. Danny opened his eyes. He was not in his room anymore. He lay on a hard surface, smooth and black like polished stone. Above him, a ceiling stretched impossibly high, covered in crystals that glowed with soft blue light. The air smelled strange, sweet and sharp at the same time, like flowers mixed with metal. Danny sat up slowly. His head felt heavy. His thoughts moved like they were swimming through mud. He was in the center of a massive chamber. It was bigger than any room he had ever seen, bigger than the cargo bay on the Horizon's Edge, bigger than the stadium back home where he used to watch baseball games as a kid. And it was full of people. No, not people. Creatures. They stood in rows that circled the chamber, thousands of them, watching him in complete silence. They were tall, much taller than humans, with bodies that looked like a mix of insect and person. Their skin was hard and shiny, like the shell of a beetle, and it shimmered with colors that shifted when they moved. Their eyes were large and made of many small parts, like the eyes of a fly, and they reflected the blue light from the ceiling. Danny's heart pounded in his chest. He wanted to run, but his legs felt weak. He wanted to scream, but his throat was dry. A figure moved through the crowd. The creatures parted for her like water parting for a ship. She was taller than the others, and her shell glowed with deep purple and gold. She wore something on her head that looked like a crown, but it was made of light, floating and spinning slowly above her. She stopped in front of Danny and looked down at him. Her eyes were dark and ancient. He felt like an ant staring up at a mountain. She reached out a hand. Her fingers were long and ended in sharp points, but she touched his forehead gently. A feeling rushed through him, warm and strange, like electricity running through his blood. "The bonding is complete," she said. Her voice was not loud, but it filled the chamber. Every creature heard it. Every creature reacted. They made sounds, clicking and humming, and Danny realized they were clapping. They were applauding. "I am sorry," Danny said, his voice cracked. "The what now?" The tall female looked at him with something that might have been amusement. "You are my consort now, my husband in the language of your people. The bonding ritual has joined our minds. You belong to me and I belong to you." Danny stared at her. His brain tried to process her words, but they made no sense. He had gone to sleep alone in his tiny room on a spaceship. He had woken up married to an alien queen. "There has to be a mistake," he said. "There is no mistake." She turned to face the crowd. "I am queen of the Ani Empire. For centuries I have searched for a consort whose mind could survive the bonding. I have looked across 1,000 worlds. I have tested millions of candidates. All of them failed. All of them broke." She looked back at Danny. "You did not break." Danny got to his feet. His legs trembled, but he forced himself to stand. "Lady, I fix pipes for a living. I am nobody. I am just a guy from Ohio who got bored and joined a space mission. You have the wrong person." "Your species fascinates us," said. "Humans dream in chaos. Your minds are wild, unpredictable, filled with noise and emotion. And yet you wake up whole. You face fear and you act anyway. You break and you put yourselves back together. We have never seen anything like it." She stepped closer. Danny could smell her now, something like rain and copper. "The bonding requires a mind that can bend without breaking," she continued. "Your mind did not just bend, it danced. You are exactly what I need." Danny wanted to argue. He wanted to tell her she was crazy, that this was all a bad dream, that he would wake up any second now back in his bunk with a headache and a story nobody would believe. But deep down, in a place he did not want to look at, he knew this was real. He could feel her in his mind now like a second heartbeat. She was there, present and vast and ancient, and she was not going away. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now you come with me," said. "You will learn our ways, you will take your place at my side, and together we will rule an empire that spans 100 stars." Danny looked at the thousands of alien creatures watching him. He looked at the crystal ceiling high above. He looked at the queen standing before him, beautiful and terrifying. He thought about his small room on the horizon's edge. He thought about the coolant leak he had fixed just hours ago. He thought about his friend Amy, who was probably wondering where he was right now. "Okay," he said quietly, "but just so you know, I am really bad at politics." Made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You will learn," she said. She turned and walked toward a door that appeared in the wall, sliding open like a mouth. Danny followed her because he did not know what else to do. Behind him, the creatures began to move, filling the chamber with the sound of clicking feet and humming voices. Danny Carter, pipe fixer from Ohio, walked into his new life as the husband of an alien queen. He still was not sure if he was dreaming. The palace was like nothing Danny had ever imagined. It was not built from metal or stone like buildings on Earth. It was grown. The walls curved like the inside of a shell, smooth and warm to the touch. The floors shifted colors as he walked, responding to his footsteps like living skin. Everywhere he looked, there were plants that glowed, water that flowed upward, and light that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Danny spent his first days in a state of confusion. Servants brought him food that looked strange but tasted surprisingly good. They dressed him in robes made of something soft and shimmering. They bowed to him and called him titles he did not understand. He was given a room next to the queen's chambers. It was large and beautiful, with a bed that floated above the floor and a window that looked out at 3 moons hanging in a purple sky. Danny stood at that window for hours, staring at a world that was not Earth, wondering how his life had gone so wrong. Or maybe so right, he was not sure yet. On the 3rd day, Queen summoned him. Her private chambers were at the top of a tower that twisted like a spiral shell. Danny walked up stairs that seemed to grow beneath his feet, and when he reached the top, he found her waiting on a balcony overlooking the city below. The city was massive. Buildings rose like trees connected by bridges of light. Flying creatures moved between them, some carrying passengers, others just drifting on the wind. In the distance, mountains glowed with inner fire, and beyond them the edge of a vast ocean sparkled under the light of the 3 moons. "Sit," said. Danny sat on a chair that molded itself to his body. The queen stood at the edge of the balcony, her back to him. She seemed different here, away from the crowds, smaller somehow, more tired. "I must explain things to you," she said. "You deserve to understand why you are here." "That would be nice," Danny admitted. She turned to face him. "My people, the Ani, have ruled this region of space for 10,000 years. We are old. We are powerful, but we have a weakness. Our rulers must be bonded. 1 queen, 1 consort. 2 minds joined as one. Without this bond, a ruler cannot access the power needed to command our forces, to connect with our ships, to speak to our people across the stars. Danny nodded slowly, like a key in a lock. Yes, a good comparison. Walked closer. I have been queen for 400 cycles. My previous consort died long ago. Since then I have searched for another. I tested thousands of candidates from my own species. All of them died or went mad. The bonding process is too intense. It burns minds that are not strong enough. So you looked elsewhere, Danny said. Yes, we began observing other species. We found your people 50 of your years ago, humans. She said the word like she was tasting it. You are young. Your civilization is barely a spark compared to ours, but your minds are different. They are chaotic, yes, messy, emotional, but they are also incredibly strong. You survive things that would destroy other species. You adapt. You refuse to give up. Danny thought about his grandmother, who had survived cancer twice and still made the best apple pie in Ohio. He thought about his father, who had worked 3 jobs to keep the family fed after the factory closed. Humans were stubborn. That was true. We scanned your ship, continued. We tested every human on board while they slept. Most of them would have survived the bonding, but their minds would have been damaged. Only one mind was perfect. Only one could bond with me completely without breaking. Me, Danny said. You, she sat down across from him. I know this is not what you wanted. I know you did not choose this. But I need you, Danny Carter. Without a consort, I cannot hold my throne. My enemies will tear this empire apart. Billions will die. Danny was quiet for a long moment. He looked at the alien queen sitting before him. She was ancient and powerful, but right now she looked almost vulnerable. She needed him. It was a strange feeling. What about my people? He asked. My ship, my friends. You may contact them if you wish, but you cannot return. The bond cannot be broken. Where I go, you must follow. Where you go, I must follow. We are one now. Danny felt the weight of those words settle on his shoulders. He was stuck here. There was no going back to his old life. No more fixing pipes. No more quiet nights in his small room. No more Earth. He took a deep breath. Okay, he said, tell me what I need to do. Far away, aboard the horizon's edge, Lieutenant Amy Dawson was very angry. She had gone to check on Danny that morning after he missed his shift. It was not like him to oversleep. When she reached his quarters, she found the door open and the room empty. His boots were still on the floor. His uniform was still hanging in the locker, but Danny was gone. Amy checked the security footage. She watched it 5 times to make sure she was not crazy. In the recording, Danny was sleeping peacefully in his bed. Then there was a flash of purple light, bright enough to fill the screen. When the light faded, the bed was empty. He had vanished. Amy ran to the captain. She showed him the footage. She demanded they search the ship. They searched every room, every storage container, every maintenance tunnel. Danny Carter was nowhere to be found. Something took him, Amy said. That light was not natural. It was a transport beam of some kind. Something grabbed him right out of his bed. The captain was a careful man. He did not believe in acting without information, but even he could not deny what the footage showed. Can we track the energy signature? He asked. The science team worked for 3 days. Finally, they found a trace, a faint trail of exotic particles leading away from the ship toward an unexplored region of space. It will take us 2 weeks to reach the source, the navigator reported. Do it, Amy said before the captain could speak. She looked at him with fire in her eyes. Danny is my friend. He fixed my coffee maker when nobody else could figure it out. He stayed up all night helping me study for my promotion exam. I am not leaving him out there. The captain sighed. He knew better than to argue with Amy Dawson when she had that look in her eyes. Alter course, he ordered. We are going to find our missing crewmen. The horizon's edge turned and began its journey toward the Ani. Amy stood at the observation window, watching the stars slide past. "Hang on, Danny," she whispered. "I am coming for you." She had no idea what she would find when she got there. She just knew she was not going to let her friend disappear without a fight. Weeks passed, and Danny began to learn. He learned the Ani language, which was a mix of sounds and movements. He learned to understand the clicking of their jaws and the twitching of their antennae. He learned the names of the noble houses, the history of their wars, and the complicated rules of their court. It was like drinking from a river. Information poured into him faster than he could swallow. But he also learned that not everyone was happy about his presence. High Advisor Hose made that very clear from the first day. He was tall even by Ani standards, with a shell as black as midnight and eyes that burned with cold intelligence. He had served the Queen for 200 years, and he did not like the idea of an alien sitting beside her on the throne. "You are a mistake," Hose told Danny during one of their first meetings. "A curiosity at best, a danger at worst. The Queen may believe she needs you, but I know better. You will bring ruin to this empire." Danny just shrugged. "Nice to meet you too." Hose tested Danny constantly. He arranged meetings where Danny would be asked difficult political questions in front of important nobles. He set up physical trials designed to show how weak humans were compared to Ani. He created social situations where Danny was sure to embarrass himself. And Danny did embarrass himself, many times. He called a High Lord by the wrong title and accidentally insulted his entire family line. He failed a climbing trial because his fingers could not grip the smooth walls the way Ani claws could. He ate a ceremonial dish that was not meant to be eaten and spent 3 days sick in his room. The nobles laughed at him. They whispered behind his back. They called him the Queen's pet, the little mammal, the soft skin. Hose watched all of this with satisfaction, waiting for her to admit her mistake and dispose of her useless consort. But Danny did not give up. Every time he failed, he got back up. Every time he made a mistake, he learned from it. He started waking up early to practice the language. He studied the history books until his eyes burned. He trained his body even though he knew he would never be as strong as Ani. Noticed? She did not say anything, but Danny could feel her approval through their bond. It was a warm feeling, like sunlight on his face. Then came the night of the great feast. It was an important event, a celebration of some ancient victory that Danny did not fully understand. Nobles from all the great houses gathered in the grand hall. Thousands of Ani filled the space, eating and drinking and making deals in dark corners. Danny sat beside the Queen on a raised platform, wearing robes that were too heavy and a crown that did not fit quite right. He was tired and uncomfortable, but he smiled and nodded and tried not to fall asleep. Servants brought food and drinks to the high table. They moved quickly and quietly, their feet clicking on the stone floor. One servant approached the Queen with a golden goblet filled with purple liquid. It was a traditional drink, something the Ani only consumed during special occasions. The servant bowed and placed the goblet before. Danny watched. He was not paying close attention. He was thinking about his bed and how nice it would be to sleep for about 100 years. But then something caught his eye. The liquid in the goblet was purple, but there was something else. A tiny shimmer of green, almost invisible, floating near the surface. It was there for just a second before it sank and disappeared. Danny did not think. He did not plan. His body moved before his brain could catch up. He knocked the goblet out of his hand just as she lifted it to drink. The cup flew across the table and shattered on the floor. Purple liquid splashed everywhere. The entire hall went silent. Hose stood up. "What is the meaning of this? The consort attacks the Queen." Guards rushed toward the platform, weapons drawn. Nobles shouted in confusion. Raised her hand and everyone stopped. "Wait," she commanded. She looked at Danny. Through their bond, she felt his certainty, his fear, his desperate need to protect her. "There was something in the drink," Danny said. His voice was steady even though his heart was pounding. A green shimmer, I saw it. Turned to her chief scientist, who was already moving toward the spilled liquid. The old Ani knelt down and produced a small device that hummed and glowed as it scanned the purple puddle. Void Bane, the scientist announced. His voice trembled. A lethal poison, untraceable by our scanners. One sip would have killed the queen in seconds. The hall erupted in chaos. Guards grabbed the servant who had brought the drink. Under questioning, he confessed everything. He had been paid by nobles from a rival house to poison the queen. He had been promised wealth and power. He had been certain no one would notice. But Danny had noticed. Later that night, after the traitors had been arrested and the hall had been cleared, sat alone with Danny in her chambers. She was quiet for a long time, staring at him with those ancient, multifaceted eyes. "How did you see it?" she finally asked. "Our scanners could not detect the poison. Our guards missed it completely. How did a human notice what we could not?" Danny thought about the question. "I do not know," he admitted. "I just saw it. The color was wrong. It did not look right. My gut told me something was bad and I moved." Leaned forward. "Your species evolved on a dangerous world. You told me once that you call it a death world. Predators everywhere, poisonous plants, diseases. Your ancestors had to be alert every moment or they would die." "I guess so," Danny said. "We call it instinct, survival reflex. It is just something we do." "It is remarkable," said. "Your eyes process information faster than ours. Your brain makes connections that we cannot. You felt danger before you understood it." She reached out and touched his hand. Her claws were sharp, but her touch was gentle. "You saved my life," she said quietly. "I will not forget this." Danny felt embarrassed. He was not a hero. He was just a guy who fixed pipes and had good reflexes. "That is what husbands do, right?" he said with a small smile. Tilted her head. "I do not understand this joke." "It is okay," Danny said. "You will learn." For the first time since he had arrived, she smiled at him. It was a strange expression on her alien face, but it was real. Word of what happened spread across the empire. The story grew with each telling. The human consort had saved the queen with his bare hands. He had seen what no Ani could see. He had moved faster than thought. The nobles who had laughed at Danny stopped laughing. Hose watched the human with new eyes, uncertain now whether he was a fool or something far more dangerous. And in the quiet of his room, Danny Carter looked at his hands and wondered what else he was capable of. Maybe being stuck in an alien empire was not the worst thing that could have happened to him. Maybe it was just the beginning. The assassination attempt was just the beginning. Within days, the rival houses that had tried to kill united under a single banner. Their leader was Lord, a massive warlord whose shell was covered with scars from 100 battles. He commanded a fleet of warships and an army of loyal soldiers. He believed the queen had weakened the empire by taking an alien consort, and he swore to remove them both from power. Civil war spread across 3-star systems. Danny watched the reports come in each day. Cities burned. Ships exploded in the void. Millions of Ani died on both sides. The conflict grew larger and bloodier with each passing week, and there was nothing he could do about it. Or so he thought. One morning, he walked into War Council. Generals and admirals surrounded a floating map that showed the positions of both fleets. Red lights marked enemy ships. Blue lights marked their own forces. There was a lot more red than blue. "We are losing," one general admitted. "His forces outnumber us. He has taken control of the outer colonies. If we do not stop him soon, he will reach them within a month." Stood at the center of the room, her face calm but her mind turbulent. Danny could feel her worry through their bond. She was carrying the weight of an empire on her shoulders, and it was crushing her. "I want to fight," Danny said. Everyone in the room turned to look at him, some with surprise, some with confusion. Hose looked at him with something close to disgust. "You," the High Advisor said. A human on the battlefield, you would be dead in minutes. Maybe, Danny admitted, but sitting here doing nothing feels worse. Shook her head. The bond connects us. If you die, I die. I cannot risk you on the front lines. And if we do nothing, we lose anyway, Danny replied. Your people see me as weak. They see me as the reason this war is happening. Let me prove them wrong. Let me show them what humans can do. The room was silent. The generals exchanged uncertain glances. Hose opened his mouth to argue but raised her hand. She looked at Danny for a long moment. Through their bond, she felt his determination. His fear was there too, but it was buried beneath something stronger, a stubborn refusal to be useless. Very well, she said. You will lead a small strike team, a surgical mission behind enemy lines, low risk, high reward. I thought you said I could not die, Danny said with a small smile. I said I could not risk you unnecessarily, replied. This mission is necessary, and you will have the best warriors in the Empire protecting you. Danny nodded, good enough for me. 3 days later, Danny found himself on a frozen moon at the edge of enemy territory. His mission was simple, destroy a supply depot that was feeding fleet. Without those supplies, the enemy advance would slow down. It might buy them enough time to regroup. His team consisted of 12 Ani warriors. They were elite soldiers, the best of the best, and they did not like taking orders from a human. They followed him because the queen commanded it, but Danny could see the doubt in their eyes. He did not blame them. He doubted himself too. The moon was cold and dead. Ice covered everything. The wind cut through Danny's environmental suit like knives. They moved across the frozen landscape in silence, using the terrain to stay hidden from enemy patrols. The depot was built into the side of a mountain. Huge doors protected the entrance, guarded by soldiers and automated weapons. Getting in would be difficult. Getting out would be harder. We go through the maintenance tunnels, Danny said, pointing at a map on his wrist display. Less guards. We plant explosives in the fuel storage and get out before anyone knows we were here. His second-in-command, a warrior named, clicked his jaws in disagreement. The tunnels are too small. We will be trapped if they find us. Then we do not get found, Danny said. They entered the tunnels. It was dark and tight, and Danny had to crawl on his hands and knees for most of the way. The Ani warriors followed, their larger bodies struggling to fit through the narrow passages. They reached the fuel storage without incident. Danny planted the explosives while his team stood guard. Everything was going according to plan. Then the alarms went off. Enemy soldiers poured into the storage area from every direction. Someone had spotted them. Someone had raised the alarm. Danny's team was surrounded, outnumbered, and cut off from their escape route. We are dead, said. His voice was flat, accepting. Not yet, Danny replied. His mind raced. He looked around the storage area, taking in everything. Fuel containers stacked in rows, pipes running along the walls, vents in the ceiling, the frozen methane that leaked from a cracked valve nearby. An idea formed in his head. It was crazy. It was probably suicide, but it was the only chance they had. Fall back to the tunnels, Danny ordered. All of you now. What about you? Demanded. Just trust me. The Ani warriors hesitated for a moment, then obeyed. They retreated into the maintenance tunnels just as the enemy soldiers opened fire. Danny ran toward the leaking methane valve. Bullets and energy blasts flew past him, missing by inches. He grabbed a piece of metal from the ground and used it to break the valve completely open. Methane gas flooded the air, mixing with the oxygen in the room. The enemy soldiers realized what was happening. Some of them tried to run. Others kept shooting, too confused to understand the danger. Danny pulled a small emergency flare from his belt. He had grabbed it before the mission because it reminded him of Earth. Now it would save his life. He threw the flare into the cloud of methane. and dove into the nearest tunnel entrance. The explosion was massive. It tore through the storage area, igniting the fuel containers one after another. The entire depot went up in flames. The mountain shook. The ground cracked. Fire roared through the tunnels like a living thing. Danny crawled as fast as he could, the heat blistering his back. He could hear rocks falling behind him. He could hear the screams of enemy soldiers caught in the inferno. He kept moving, pushing forward, refusing to stop. He emerged on the other side of the mountain, coughing and burned but alive. His team was waiting for him, staring in disbelief. The depot was gone. A crater smoked where the mountain had been. Flames still burned in the ruins, visible even through the ice and snow. Looked at Danny with new eyes. "You destroyed everything," he said. "You killed them all." Danny coughed. "Yeah," he said, "that was the plan." "That was insane." "Welcome to being human." Word of the mission spread across the Empire. The human consort had led a suicide attack on an enemy depot. He had destroyed it with his bare hands and walked out of the flames like a demon from old legends. The story grew with each telling, becoming more exaggerated each time. But the truth was impressive enough. Sidvance slowed. His fleet ran low on fuel. The war was not over, but for the first time, forces had a chance. And in the quiet of the night, aboard the horizon's edge, Amy Dawson finally received a signal. She had reached the Ani. She opened a channel and waited. Danny's face appeared on the screen. He was burned and bandaged, but he was smiling. "Hey, Amy," he said. "Long time no see." "Danny," Amy's voice cracked. "Are you okay? Do you need rescue?" Danny was quiet for a moment. He thought about everything he had done, everything he had become, the empire that now depended on him. "I am okay," he said finally, "but rescue might be complicated." "Just say the word," Amy said. "We will get you out of there." Danny hesitated. He did not know what to say. The final battle came faster than anyone expected. Lord was desperate. His supply lines were broken. His allies were losing faith. He knew that if he did not strike now, his rebellion would crumble. So he gathered every ship he had left and launched a direct attack on the Ani. Danny stood on the command deck of his flagship, watching the enemy fleet emerge from faster-than-light travel. Hundreds of warships filled the void, their weapons already charging. They looked like a swarm of angry insects, dark and deadly against the stars. "They outnumber us 3-1, Admiral reported. His voice was calm, but Danny could see the fear in his eyes. Stood at the center of the deck, connected to the ship through a neural interface. Her mind touched every system, every weapon, every crew member. She was the heart of the fleet, and Danny was connected to her. He could feel the weight of command pressing down on her, heavy as a mountain. "We hold the line," she said. "We defend our world, we do not retreat." The battle began. Energy beams slashed through the darkness. Ships exploded into clouds of fire and debris. Fighters swarmed around the larger vessels like angry bees, firing and dying in equal measure. The noise was deafening even through the ship's walls, a constant roar of destruction. Danny felt useless. He was not a pilot. He was not a gunner. He was just a maintenance technician standing on a command deck, watching a war unfold around him. But his mind was working. It was always working. "That ship," he said, pointing at the tactical display. "The big one in the center, that is flagship, right?" Admiral nodded. "Yes, but it is too well protected. We cannot reach it without losing most of our fleet." Danny studied the display. Enemy ships surrounded the flagship in a protective formation. Any attack would be cut to pieces before it got close. It was a perfect defense. Except for one thing. "What if we did not attack?" Danny said slowly. "What if we just crashed into it?" The Admiral stared at him. "What?" "That damaged cruiser on our left flank. The one that has already lost half its systems. What if we evacuated the crew and sent it straight at the flagship, full speed, faster than light. "That is impossible," the Admiral said. "No one uses faster-than-light drives as weapons. The calculations are too complex. The timing has to be perfect. It has never been done." "Has anyone ever tried?" Danny asked. The Admiral opened his mouth to argue, then stopped. He looked at. The Queen was silent for a long moment. Danny could feel her mind working through the possibilities, running the numbers, calculating the risks. She was ancient and wise, but even she had never considered something so reckless. "It could work," she said finally. "The enemy would never expect it. They have no defense against a faster-than-light impact." "It is madness," the Admiral protested. "It is human," said. She looked at Danny with something like admiration. "Your species does not think like us. You do not calculate and plan. You improvise. You take risks that should not work and somehow make them succeed." She gave the order. The damaged cruiser was evacuated. Its skeleton crew transferred to other ships. Then, controlled by the flagship's computers, it turned toward the enemy formation. Did not understand what was happening. His commanders reported the movement but dismissed it as meaningless. A single damaged ship was not a threat. They focused on the main battle, pressing their advantage. They realized their mistake too late. The cruiser jumped to faster-than-light speed. For one terrible instant, it was everywhere and nowhere at once, a streak of light crossing the impossible distance between the fleets. It hits flagship like a meteor. The explosion was blinding. Danny shielded his eyes, but even through his fingers he could see the flash. When his vision cleared, the enemy flagship was gone. Not damaged, not crippled. Gone, erased from existence. The ships around it were tumbling out of control, caught in the shockwave. Lord was dead. His command structure was destroyed. His fleet fell into chaos. Did not hesitate. She ordered a full attack. Her ships surged forward, weapons blazing, tearing through the confused enemy forces. Within hours, the battle was over. The enemy fleet was scattered, destroyed, or surrendered. The war was won. Later in the quiet aftermath addressed her empire. Her voice broadcast across 100 worlds, reaching billions of her people. She stood on the steps of her palace, with Danny at her side. "Today we faced our greatest enemy," she said. "And today we won. But this victory did not belong to me alone. It belonged to my consort, to the human who saved my life, who fought alongside our warriors, who gave us the idea that ended this war." She turned to Danny. Her claws took his hand gently. "He is not an Ani," she continued. "He was not born among us. He does not look like us or think like us, but he is one of us now. And from this day forward he will not be called my consort. He will be called my king, my equal, the first non-Ani to ever hold such a title." The crowd before them erupted in sound, clicking and humming, the Ani way of cheering. Danny stood there, overwhelmed, not quite believing what was happening. A few days later, the Horizon's Edge arrived at the. Amy Dawson came down in a shuttle, expecting to rescue her friend. Instead, she found him sitting on a throne made of living crystal, wearing ceremonial armor that glowed with inner light. She stopped at the entrance of the throne room and stared. "So," she said after a long pause, "you are a king now." "Apparently," Danny replied. He looked uncomfortable in his royal clothes, but he was smiling. "You gonna come home?" Amy asked. Danny looked at who sat on the throne beside him. The Queen watched the exchange with curiosity, her multifaceted eyes reflecting Amy's image. He thought about Earth. He thought about Ohio. He thought about the small room on the Horizon's Edge where he used to sleep alone, dreaming of nothing important. Then he thought about everything he had found here: purpose, power, a strange and beautiful alien who somehow loved him. "I think I am home," he said quietly. Amy sighed. She had known him for years. She knew that tone. He had made up his mind. "You always were weird, Danny," she said. "Yeah," he agreed, but now I am weird with a crown." She laughed despite herself. She walked forward and pulled him into a hug, armor and all. He hugged her back, holding on for a long moment. "I am proud of you," she whispered, "even if this is completely insane." "It really is," Danny admitted. Amy pulled back. She looked at. The Queen met her gaze steadily. "You better take care of him," Amy said, "or I will come back here with a lot more than one ship." Tilted her head. "I believe you would try." "I would not just try, I would succeed." The Queen made that strange sound that Danny had learned was laughter. "I like her," she told Danny. "Yeah," Danny said, "me too." Amy left a week later, carrying a treaty proposal between the Ani Empire and Earth. It was the first step towards something no one had imagined possible: formal diplomatic relations between humanity and an alien civilization. Years passed. Danny grew into his role. He never stopped feeling like an imposter, but he learned that feeling did not matter as much as action. He advised the Queen. He represented humanity. He proved again and again that his species was not to be underestimated. And across the galaxy, stories spread about the human king, the pipe fixer from Ohio who had become royalty, the man who had slept alone and woken up married to an alien queen. Humans, the galaxy learned, were strange creatures, small and fragile, short-lived and emotional. They made no sense at all. But when the universe threw something impossible at them, they simply shrugged and made the best of it. That, more than anything, was what made them terrifying and wonderful. Danny Carter stood on his balcony, looking up at 3 moons in a purple sky. His wife stood beside him, her clawed hand in his. "Do you regret it?" asked, "being taken from your world, being bonded to me?" Danny thought about the question. He thought about everything he had lost and everything he had gained. "No," he said, "I do not regret anything." She leaned against him, her hard shell warm against his side. "Good," she said, "because you are stuck with me forever." Danny smiled. "I can live with that."